Howdy, folks. What's going on? This is the Outlaw Hatfield back at
No
you one
problem.
more
No
time.
problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I have a very special guest, Mr. Bob Hansler. Bob, how are you tonight, sir? Can you hear me, Bob? How you doing tonight?
Oh, pretty
We
good.
might.
Y'all hear me pretty loud,
Uh,
clear?
uh, Now we got you, Bubba. Bob. Well, let's start off by you introducing
You're
yourself.
breaking
Let
up
these
now.
folks. Well, that ain't no surprise. That any better? That any better?
You,
Can you hear me now? One second here. Dag burn it.
hey, Eric, if you're not hearing me right now,
Okay.
your speed's going at about a half or a third of what it ought to be.
That ain't no
So I don't know what's
surprise.
going on, man.
Give me.
How about now? On LTE. Yes, you are full. Okay.
Okay. Now can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. You were going about a third speed.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's normal. This is
all right. Now I can hear you. Now I can hear you.
okay, good. So, Bob, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell these fine folks what you do and what you're about.
Hey, group. I'm down here in South Texas. I teach outdoor education, wilderness survival, lots of little tricks and parts and pieces with my dog that just ran off after an armadillo. Um, we teach all kinds of skills to make sure that folks know what they can do out and about. And I try and put kind of a Texas native swing to it. I try and teach people kind of the correct versions, or at least the ways that are practiced out there. I grew up in the outdoors. I've done a lot of stuff out, and when I started getting on YouTube and seeing survival, there was a lot of bad information going out there, or a lot of folks would sit there and say, "Hey, this is what it ought to look like," and their traps wouldn't work, their their hunting wouldn't work, their fishing wouldn't work, and they were just giving really terrible advice. So I decided to try and counter that and be one more channel where the good information was.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have watched a ton of your videos over the last 2.5, 3 years, and the information you put out. And here's the thing: you practice what you preach. You get out there and you show them how to do it, and then you tell them, "Hey, look, no, this is what it's going to take for you to do this, and it ain't going to be easy, but with time, patience, and practice, you can get it done."
Absolutely, yeah. It's a lot of tricks that have been developed over a lot of time spent out on the trail, cumulative years out on the trail for long periods of time. And it just takes a couple of those little tricks that if I'd have known when I started all this out, if I'd have known those tricks, it would have been so much easier for me. And I kind of look at it that way. If I'm able to sit there and help somebody out and make their life a little easier, or their survival situation a little more bearable, then I'm all about it, because it comes down to those little things a lot of times.
Um, how long have you been doing this? The whole wilderness survival uh, teaching. I'm sure you was doing it before the YouTube started.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. I started up in the Scouts, the Boy Scouts of America, and so that was a pretty amazing organization. I got lucky and I grew up a couple hours away from a high adventure ranch back in the Davis Mountains, and so it was a little bit more unconventional than most scouting backgrounds. They threw me in the backcountry pretty fast, and it was a different set of rules than what you'd get at a little summer camp kind of thing. It was quite different. But I was surrounded by a lot of folks that wanted to teach me how not to kill myself, and wanted to see me thrive, but also gave me enough rope to hurt myself here and there, and learn lessons that way. So uh, had lots of cool experiences growing up where I had the opportunity to go outside, and I kind of fell in love with it. Grandparents had me up in Alaska. We spent months and months out there on gold claims in the middle of nowhere, getting supplies flown in for us. And so that was me at 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 years old. Was out in Alaska doing that kind of stuff, and then family always owned land out in the forests and ranches. So this was my way out, was just to come out, hang out with folks, and learn things and teach things. So it, it's been.
So go ahead.
I, I'm good.
Oh, okay. So, let's take a second and say hello to the folks out there in the chat. We have Mystic Guns, G23, Rich White, Midnight Range is out there, and Mr. Gizzard Gary has just shown up. Guys, I appreciate you. God love you. Enjoy the show. So what's your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree in science biology. I have a teaching certificate that I got along with it out of West Texas. I started getting going to grad school and got through most of it before life threw some stuff at me, and so I dropped that. About that time, YouTube made it where I ran the math and figured out that YouTube could pay me enough to get by. So I went ahead and retired out as a teacher of 4 years in high school, and came and started doing this. So this was a lot better as far as making money, was being able to show lots of people survival skills. So we've been trying to make this thing work and knocking it out ever since. But yeah,
Yeah, there's an old saying that if you're doing what you love, you never work a day in your life. And
true.
and I like I said, I've watched a ton of your stuff. You
Appreciate it.
seem like you love every minute of it. You seem like you just never have a dull moment of boredom.
Yeah, those are the good days, and there's a lot of variables when you're out there filming. But I teach a lot of guys that I take out on trail, especially horseback, whether they're participants or they're wranglers that I'm training up to become trail bosses. If you're going to be out there every single day for weeks on end and months on end, it's going to rain. It's going to rain on you. It's going to hail on your face. You're going to have a horse come up lame at some point. Things are going to happen. I mean, people are going to be screaming, and there's going to be blood at some point. It's just the longer you're out there, the more often it's going to be. You're going to be on a search and rescue, and you're going to have to take care of it. The more you can just be in the moment and not let it bother you. If it rains, do what the horses do. Let it rain. But I'll watch somebody spend an hour or two just trying to get that raincoat over themselves more and more. And every drop that gets on them just causes them all the grief in the world. And if you can just smile and enjoy the rain, because it is rain, and just be there in the moment, things don't tend to bother you as much. So,
I learned
yeah,
at a very young age some of the best times I've ever had in my life came in during a rainstorm. Some of the best fishing I've ever done in my life was during hard rains.
yeah,
It's. So if you ain't never fished in the rain, you ain't never been fishing. That's just all there is to it.
yeah.
Um,
It's mind frame. It's let it happen. And when
yep,
we're doing these films and it's taking hours to get films done, and something out of the blue comes up as a rainstorm or anything goes on, just roll with it. You've already invested this much time in it. You might as well keep going.
absolutely. So let me ask you, tell me a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes on some of your shoots, because I know that you've had to have some encounters with some critters and some you know other incidents that just made you shake your head and go, no.
Yeah, it can be interesting. Huck's given up on me at least once when it got too hot. So he's a union dog every once in a while, and he does take bribes. But if it gets too hot and he's overheating, he just kind of looks at me and says, "Nah, you get what you get." He's over here running security right now. As far as things going wrong, boy, the more we've gone, the the more issues you have, the more problems you come up with, the more you prepare yourself for it. So we have multiple cameras just in case one's down. We have multiple battery backups just in case one's down. We have multiple of everything just to make sure that we don't get out on location somewhere and have some kind of issue come up where you're missing one thing and it all just falls apart. So there's all kinds of issues back there. I fortunately don't really mess with a lot of folks. It's just my wife Shauna and Huck run the camera, and so I don't have a lot of logistical issues with having film crew not show up or things fall into stuff.
Sometimes
Uh,
simple works best.
Simple is extra, especially when you start looking through things. And so, like that last foraging video that was posted, there's almost 200 cuts in that one video, and so there's a lot of interesting editing going on. There's a lot of creative filming going on, and especially the eyesight, I'm not always finding what I need to the first take. So a little bit of movie magic there. Y'all don't really want to see a guy stumbling around trying to find stuff. So there's a little bit of that in here and there, just to kind of move the narrative along. But for the most part, it's it's trying to make sure that we've got enough options and hopefully the animals work out, because you're only going to get one opportunity at these experiences for the most part, and the
That's
animals not going to do the same thing again, or I mean that was the $1 million moment right there. And if you have the cameras on, you get it. If you didn't, there's no doing it over. So it's an interesting way of filming. Every day the weather's going to be different. Some of it's conducive to filming, some of it's not. Each season's absolutely different. Each year, I have crawfish some years I don't. So that really depends on what kind of videos I have. Sometimes the snakes show up, sometimes they don't. And who knows what the patterns are with a lot of these things. So we have a big list of things that we'd like to teach, and we try and pick out for that week or that month those things that are showing best to give the best illustrations and demonstrations, so that folks, when they know it and see it, that they can identify it, they can figure it out, and they can go from there and have the tools they need. Because not only do people get bad information from the internet sometimes, but they get overwhelmed. I've I've seen several pictures come up on some Facebook groups where it shows 170 different ways to set up your tarp shelter. And at first it looks amazing, 170 different ways. But if I were to print that out or give that to somebody and they were in a real situation, they had that tarp and they had that rope and they had some sticks, you find out real quick that there's only like 2 or 3 ways you really want to put that tarp shelter up. Everything else, you're so bogged down with options that it's not going to fit your needs. So there is definitely a correct answer, or right and wrong, with a lot of these things. And it seems ideal to have more information. Why would more information be bad? But sometimes we have to pare it down and make sure that we have those skills that we really know really well down, and not get mixed up with 1,500 options for every turn in survival situation.
Kingpin. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Mr. Kingpin out there is posting a link to your channel.
Oh, thank you.
So we've got that taken care of, and I'm just going to leave that up right there for a few minutes, guys. If you haven't checked Bob out, you really should. He's got more information out there than anybody I've seen, and rather, it's not only informational, it's very entertaining. He's good at what he does.
So.
The first video of yours I think I remember watching was you trapping snakes. And I was like, this dude is using a crawdad trap to trap snakes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Trap. I've got them out in the creek right now trying to pick up some crawdads.
So I was like, okay, this guy's interesting. So, I stuck around and you hooked me, man. I'm just, and some of the things that I have seen you eat, I just shake my head and go, what?
I would do most of them again, just not that vinegaroon. That was terrible.
I don't know. Like I think I sent you a message like last week. I'd watched the last video or a video before that you had done on the same subject, and you had eaten some peppers, and the look on your face when you took a bite out of that pepper was just, it was just amazing.
I've got a ton of those pepper plants up and down the cliff right now. They're all turning reds. They're beautiful and easy to spot. But it's always a hoot to watch people pop one in their mouth each time. Some years they're pretty mean. Some years they're not bad at all. But I think I
It's
did the
always
same thing with Wooded Beardsman when he came down from Canada, and so they're not used to spice at all. They put maple syrup on everything, so it was pretty entertaining to watch him chew on that pepper.
um it's been my experience that the green peppers are normally hotter than the red ones.
Hmm.
So if you lay one of each in front of me, I'd go after the red one first.
I keep on trying to figure it out, but a lot of times by the time I'm done with the first one, the second
You
one
don't
doesn't bother me as
you
much.
don't
So it's
taste the
hard for
second
me to,
one.
yeah, I can't quite figure out. I think it's more of a texture thing, and I like the crunchy of the red. I mean the crunchy of the green, but they're they're for impressing people and doing stuff. I've gotten more tolerant of them, but they can still pack a punch. We probably have about 50 bushes right now running on the creek, so that'll be gifts for folks. We'll put them in the dehydrator,
Hmm.
complete full red, and the dehydrator brings out the light in them. I mean, the color turns even redder, brighter red. So they make really pretty gifts, real pretty gifts.
I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's say you wake up in the morning and you decide, okay, let's go forage for food. What's the first thing you look for?
Well, it depends on what I'm hungry for. Am I hungry, or am I surviving, or
No, well, let's put you in both scenarios one at a time. You're just out walking and you're camping and decide you want some food, something to spice up some fish you've already caught.
oh well, it's probably gonna be wild onion immediately. Um, the wild onion, I love onion. I put onion in everything, and you get calories out of it. The peppers depends on time of year, so I'll put a few crushed peppers in there if I have it. I have something called pepperweed, and I wanted to show that, but this year it was a bad season for pepperweed, and it grows out here all the time until I want to look for it, and then I can't find it anywhere. So I'll put pepperweed all over whatever that fish is, depending on what I want to do with that fish. Because really, you want to have variety in what you're eating. A lot of times we say, okay, I'm going to take a fish, I'm just going to fry it. And you fry fish and fry fish and fry fish, or blacken the fish. You want to change your flavor profile up. I've mentioned that in a lot of videos. So eventually getting to the point where you want to take a cactus tuna and kind of shred that fruit up, or take some berries and crush them up and make some kind of marmalade or something to put inside that fish to make it a sweet meat to really change up the tastes. Uh, it just depends on what you have around, because changing up the flavor of the meat is extremely important, especially if you want to continue to keep your weight up and keep on eating. You might not even recognize that you're not eating as much, but you tend to stop eating as much, and that's when you start losing the game.
So now let's take it to the extreme. You are in a survival situation. You're needing food. You have no fish. What's your go-to? I mean, where was the first stop?
If I need calories, it's what I collect on my way to get the calories. So if I come across berry bushes and nut bushes on my way, or nut trees on the way to the river, then I'll grab those as I go. As soon as I jump in my river, I mean, if it's cold outside, I'll start a fire on the side of the bank. But within about 30 minutes, I can probably pull in 80 to 100 pounds of clams, all about the size of my fist or bigger. And so I've got my calories immediately as far as what I need. And I've got 1,000 miles of river. Uh, I would never starve. I'd never be without the meat that I need. And with that figured out, my next step is not so much survival, but figuring out how to vary my food groups, to find ways to hunt other types of meat together, other types of foods, so that I do not get sick of clams, because I know I will quick.
Yeah.
So it's rather easy for me on this end, because I do have the resource like the clams, and I can dig down the banks and find all of the onions, and I've got options like that that'll get me started to the point where I can then build traps and go out and take things. If the creek's full of water, I'll go at nighttime and I'll go by hand, and I can pick out fish by hand pretty quick in my creek. Crawdads
And
and grouper
frogs.
and frogs. Yeah, depending on the
Frogs.
year. If there's not as many snakes, the frogs will be everywhere. Stack them up. But it's all game right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and do in the next week a video on how to cook toads. I've got some real big toads out here, and I haven't seen anybody really approach that. A lot of folks are wary of them because of the toxins they have on their skin, and it's one of those deals. You might not have anything, or that might be the only thing you came across that day. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you knew how to approach that animal and get what you need out of it instead of passing up an opportunity? So that's kind of the idea.
Sometimes in survival you have to take a chance.
Yeah.
So it's not
Um,
always going to be convenient. We'll see.
no, it's rarely convenient. It's rarely convenient. No, I have a lot of folks that like to play that game where they go, wouldn't it be awesome if we were out there doing that and we had to be in that situation?
No, it wouldn't.
No.
No, it really
No,
wouldn't.
you're gonna miss ranch dressing real quick.
Well, no, I won't miss it because I don't like ranch dressing to begin with. So
I got you. I use it as an example, but it's all the little things that really, all the luxuries that we take for granted all the time.
what I would miss is pulled pork. That's what I would miss.
Dude, I can make that out here in a survival situation in a heartbeat. I'll pit roast you a pig for a day and a half. You can have as much pulled pork as you want.
I'm on
So,
my way to Texas when we start.
yeah, that's easy. You go pick up the backhoe. I'm not digging a hole.
Man. Um, I got to work with the guys from Texas, and he brought in some pulled pork the other day, and it was absolutely delicious. I don't know what it is about you Texans and pulled pork, but you know what you're doing.
There's certain parts of Texas that have some extreme barbecue. So I think it's been kind of taken over by Rudy's. There's Salt Licks and stuff like that. We got a few originals out there, but we like the meat out. We really like the meat. But you throw a $50 bill down on the table, and they'll continue bringing you whatever type of meat you want as long as you're there. It's pretty nuts.
Well, see, for a fat man like me, that's not a healthy thing to be. Yeah, you just don't want to go in a place like that.
I don't know. I don't know. It all seems quite reasonable at first.
Yeah, until they have to roll you out the door.
Right. Yeah. No,
Um,
it's good.
so for, I don't know how many of my viewers have actually, or how many of the people that's going to see this in the future have actually watched Bob's channel. But a few years back, he had some issues. Did you talk about that a little bit, Bob?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've gotten to a point where most people can't tell I squint a lot more. So and my body's definitely aged quite a bit in 3 years. I I looked like I was about 19 about 4 years ago, but I've had too many surgeries. My 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 retina's detached extremely slowly. I had some high blood pressure issues, and I didn't realize it was happening until I was nearly blind. And that led to a dozen surgeries on both eyes over and over again, having them cut up and then being down for another few months, not being able to see anything. The right eye finally died in the last surgery that I had on it. So the right eye, it looks like an eye. It does eye things except for see. It's completely black. And the left eye still has oil in it. The lens had to be replaced on it because it went cataract as well. So I'm legally blind big time in the left eye and completely blind in the right eye. And it's been a long journey with all that. So that was a lot of pain and a lot of time because I had to spend months and months face down, not moving, so that my retinas would reattach. And so kind of an issue. Kind of a really big issue. I didn't know if I was ever going to see again, and it got stuck in my head for a long time trying to figure things out and hoping that I'd be able to do any of this stuff ever again. So what I've gotten back has been excellent, and hopefully at some point they'll come out with a robot eye and I'll be Terminator or something. I don't know. So
You
hopefully,
know, and for those of you who don't know it, I've talked to Bob several times over the last few weeks, and I've told you this before. Your story's amazing. It's heartwarming. You know, most people just gave up. You know, forget it. There's nothing I can do. I'm done. You've kept fighting, and that is a very commendable trait. You know, you seen the situation. You know, and I think it's just what you were saying earlier, the way you was raised. You know, not to give up. You know, as long as there's life, there's chance. Um,
there's definitely a streak in there. I think we cauterize ourselves. It's been interesting watching my mind change, going through a traumatic experience and watching myself wall off the most painful parts. Because I can look back on it and it's like somebody else's life right now. I I got lost in the front yard for almost an hour one time. I couldn't find. I've got a big front yard. I couldn't find my way to the house. I I was walking several miles up and down the road out here, the country road, and I remember I do it every single day, trying to regain my muscles because they'd atrophied after almost a year of not moving. And I tried to go a little bit for every day further. And I had my walking stick and everything else, and I couldn't tell the difference between the grass and the road. And Shauna just told all the neighbors, "Don't run me over." And I tried to stay straight on the road, and I couldn't even stay straight walking across the road. I'd find myself just zigzagging, hitting grass, and zigzagging, hitting road. And it was, I didn't know if I'd ever see again. I didn't know what was. She would just wheel me out there in the middle of the field and with a chair and a cigar and an audio book, and the horses and Huck would just look after me. There's just a lot of days and weeks like that, and then having her come out and read the comments that came up on the YouTube video, and the well wishes and everybody looking out for me. That was a big part of being able to get through every day. So it's nuts. It's crazy.
yeah,
I don't recommend going blind to anybody, uh, or anything else that was going on. It was crazy.
um, there's another YouTuber out there, Patriot in the Dark. He is a blind CCW holder. He's got his own channel,
Huh.
and he like you. He's an inspiration. You know, people need to learn that situations suck; they get bad, but it's your own mental fortitude that gets you through. You know, um, and of course, you've had a lot of support from a lot of YouTubers and fans of your shows, fans of your channel, me included. Um,
Appreciate it.
I remember watching those shows, those couple of videos when you were talking about what was going on with your eyes, and I remember thinking at the time, you know, here's a guy that's got one of the, in my opinion, best survival YouTube channels out there, and he's in a fight for his life right now. And
Yeah.
when I started seeing you making videos again after that, I was like, oh, wait a minute, here he's back and he's not giving up, and right back on the bandwagon you go. And then you're putting out more survival videos, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to reach out to this guy. I want him on the channel. Bob,
I appreciate you.
you're an inspiration, like it or not. And I know you probably don't like hearing that, but it's true. You truly are.
it. I don't know. I'm not done yet.
Oh, of
I've got
course not.
too much to do. I've got way too much to do, and my girls are still going through school. Um, I had all the support of my dog and my wife, so they. I do not know what he's going after. He's out in the forest right now.
Oh, I heard
He's
him run
trying to
off.
look. Yeah, he's got an armadillo right now.
Dinner for tomorrow.
Uh, I think I'm gonna go ahead and do a video on it this year. I try and balance everything out. And some years are good and some years are bad, but there are armadillos everywhere this year. They're all over the place. So it's one of those sensitive things because a lot of folks kind of have a cringe when they think about armadillos and anything that looks cute and cuddly. And I understand that it's not always a good feeling. But when you're in a survival situation, you start getting hungry. You're not going to care how cute it is. Your
No.
brain's going to change over, and then same thing goes. We're in Texas. So some years you just have a ton and a ton and a ton of them, and so you might as well make something out of it as a meal because it armadillo has been something we've been eating out here for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's at all the it's at all the bazaars down there in Mexico. Live armadillos are sold in all the markets. So possum on the half shell.
Yep, that's what they call them.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just,
pretty easy taking them apart.
yeah.
They
Me and
don't.
you had this conversation last week.
Yeah.
You make that video. I'll watch you make it. I'll watch you eat it. But you can have it for yourself. I don't want to share. I don't want to partake.
You'll change your mind, man. They look great. They look great. The shell comes off real quick. They just look like a chihuahua or a jackrabbit once you take the shell off. So it's beautiful, beautiful meat. It'll eat.
Oh yeah, yeah. So will a rabbit
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
squirrel.
Rabbit will. Rabbit will. This has quite a bit into it. I don't know. They just walk around eating insects, so they taste pretty good. They really do. But
Um, I don't
Huck's
know. Too.
always trying to be friends with them, though.
Um, now, how much research do you do right now on this stuff before you actually decide? Okay, I'm going to try to catch and cook an armadillo.
Quite a bit. I mean, the armadillo stuff I've already got down. That's already figured out. That's but what we typically do as far as the YouTube channel, because we do deal with a lot of variables from season to season, year to year, day to day. We have several whiteboards. They're project boards, and they're different lists as far as priority, and then time versus payout as well. And so, depending on what that day allows us, if it's the wrong weather or the wrong things happening, we want to be able to shift gears to something that might be more possible. So when things come about, I think the last real survival video I had before the foraging was something with grubs and mushrooms.
Yep.
Um, those mushrooms come out; they only last for 2 or 3 days as a fruiting body, really, before they start tasting weird. So I was going to go do another video, and those mushrooms popped out. So I went ahead and did a video on that. You got to be flexible, but for every point on the project board, as far as a video, I try and flesh it out as far as what we can do, what the options are, and then I try and button up any of the question marks with research to pretty much make sure I've got everything down. And if I don't, the internet's surely going to educate me very quickly if I post a video and explain something that's anywhere close to hedging on wrong or incorrect. So, and
Yeah.
I'll learn. Yeah.
Hey, we. You know, it's like I've had you call me out more than once over on Facebook. It's happened. So I don't mind that. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. You know, I
That's
learned
my
something from it.
that's my entertainment value out here, man. There's nobody out here, so it's fun to have different ideas. It's fun to be educated. I try and stay ahead of it, but there's always going to be something where maybe something that I had a perceived somebody taught me something when I was a kid, and that's what I took to heart, and it might not be exactly true, So I try and keep an open mind with a lot of it, except for when people tell me I can't say cactuses. And I will continue to say cactuses my entire life forever. Mostly just because it upsets people that I say cactuses instead of cacti. So you win some, you lose some, and we'll disagree on a few other things forever.
Well, I have never noticed you saying cactuses until just now.
Oh, they're the comment section's full of it. Yeah, cactuses, cactuses. So I get a
Yeah.
lesson on what I'm saying wrong all the time, man.
Uh, I
It really
wouldn't.
gets you conscious of what you say. Yeah, I say it especially too often, and I catch it editing, and then they catch it when they see the video. So I get a lot of especially instead of, or especially ex especially.
Yeah.
So any speech impediment that I have, or anything that I'm pronouncing things incorrectly or a little off, they're 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 bound to help me on it.
Well, I want to tell you a little secret, Bob.
Hmm.
And my mother, God bless her heart, she never washed a load of clothes in her life, but she washed a lot of them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it was. She could never say the word wash. It was wash.
Warsh.
WOR. And I was like, okay.
Yeah,
She washed the clothes.
yeah,
So I ain't one to judge anybody on the way they talk.
right. Well, the
You know,
internet's all about it.
and until I was 17 years old, every time I said the word couch, it had an N in it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
the couch. There was always, because that was the way you always heard it growing up, is couch. So
yeah,
it's weird, man. I don't pay attention to it anymore. I just, I'm me, and I'm going to talk like I always have, and
yeah.
really don't care what people think.
Regional differences work pretty well.
Yeah, exactly,
It gives us
exactly.
a flair. There's
So,
every once in a while Texas accent comes out. So
let's talk about survival.
all right,
If I had to give you, I'm going to give you a list of things, and I want you to tell me what I should keep in my survival kit, and maybe think about taking something out.
okay,
And the first on the list, of course, is a knife. I always have a knife. Paracord. I've always found that to be useful in most situations.
yes,
Um, some kind of multi tool. That's not only an extra knife; it's other tools that you may use for other situations. Um, Fork, spoon, a tarp, of course. Um, First aid kit. You never know when you might need that. Snake bites, what have you.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. A little bit of
so
antibiotics works quite a bit. Yeah.
yeah. So what else would a person that's just getting into this, that wants to learn, what should they be thinking about having in a survival kit?
Well, you nailed it on the head with your multi tool. That's always going to be on me, and that's my basic everyday everything knife. So right there, that's always on me, no matter what. And that has a whole bunch of other tools on it and capable of making other tools and making resources out of whatever's going on. And it's got two knives on it, as it were, and that's everything I need to make or carve something up, lowbrow stuff. Your regular survival knife, that needs to be, that's probably one of the most important things that you could go out there and shop for. It is key to have some kind of bush blade that's capable of doing some axe work kind of thing. You cannot make anything if you don't have the weight in the blade. You can have a big giant knife, and I have some other buoys. They don't have the weight in the blade just right. I can't go through a tree with it. They look big, they look beautiful, they don't do anything. So having a bush blade like a big chopper or something that you can manage and build stuff and do stuff with, an all around blade. You pretty much need a sword, and then you need your multi tool. to be able to get around everything. So your tarp, make sure you have a big enough tarp. They've got some amazing microfiber stuff. So a 12 by 12 at least for your tarp. I see a lot of people with a 10 by 10, and it's just not enough room. If you're trying to stay out there, if it rains for 3 days, you're going to be confined to that 10 by 10, and then and you won't be. You need as much room as possible to make sure that you can do what you need, and you have the extra space to be able to work under there, deflect heat, keep the rain off of you, and everything else like that. So be as smart as you can with that. The paracord, make sure you have good paracord and understand that within a year it's going to break down and be done, or it does in Texas. So your paracord's got an expiration date on it. So either get paracord or tarred bank line, something woven, a woven tarred bank line would probably help you out as well. The benefit to the paracord is that you can take the outside sheath off, and you've got 7 other lines inside of it, each at 50-pound test. With the paracord, though, especially if you're going to take that apart with the sheathing and take the curd out of the middle, you need to make sure that you are very versed with knots, because most of the knots are going to slip out of that really slick cord. So you need to know how to use your knots and know how to lash and know how to use the rope that you have wisely. Because I've had several groups come out here and use up 200 to 300 yards of line just to make a chair and a shelter, when just a little bit of design and practice could have brought that down to 20 yards. So you can have a lot of resources, but if you're using them, you're not using them to the best of your ability, you're wasting them. So
Yep.
stuff like that. First aid, it's good to have a couple band-aids. For me out here especially, it's antibiotics, bacteria, inflammation, infection, and pain reliever, because things are going to sting you, things are going to attack you, rashes are going to come up, especially if you're out there foraging through various plants. You won't even know what you went up against, but your body will start reacting at times. It happens to me out here all the time. So it's less about the scrapes. As long as you're not going to bleed out, you're fine, and you ought to be able to stop bleeding somehow. So I got suture kits in my stuff. Survival kit for me, a lot of times, was make sure I had my big bandana, a big kerchief to be able to filter things in and be able to keep the sun off me so I didn't burn so fast. And then food and spices. So anything that's high calorie and easy to grab a hold of and eat on, I want to make sure I've got at least a day and a half, 2 days worth of food, because that's my absolute emergency. I've had a couple people come out and do survival challenges here on the property, and they go, all right, I budgeted myself 24 hours worth of calories, and then I should be able to by then have all my fishing kit out and my traps out. And the first hour they get out here, they get an inch of rain on their head, and then 4 more inches in the next 5 hours, and they're flooded out for 2 or 3 days. Everything that they had ready to go is no longer applicable, and the game has changed, and they didn't have as much as they needed. So I've done survival challenges where I started out with no calories at all in my pack, and that was probably the most horrible time I've ever had. You need a few calories to get started. I mean, what I would do for 5 or 6 granola bars in my pack, I'd do horrible things just to make sure I had that to start out with, because it's rough. It's rough running your calories out, chasing the calories at the same time. So
You got to make sure you're putting in more than you're putting out.
big time. So yep. Little tricks like that. I mean, if we're gonna play survival, I know just about 95% of the people, if they shot a deer, immediately they start skinning that deer, or if they shot something else. I know now that if I'm playing the survival game, I'm not going to skin anything. I'll gut it out, but I'll cook it in its skin from here on out, and I'll cook it down as long as I can, because all that fat's in the skin.
Keep that fat content, exactly.
Big time. And I wouldn't have thought that 6 or 7 years ago. I didn't know it was that important. You can eat meat all day long. You can eat lean deer all day long. You're still gonna die.
You know,
Um,
you for people don't know it, but venison just does not have the fat content that the human body needs to sustain.
yeah,
You have to figure out how to get that fat.
yeah. And so I
Um,
mean, we do hunt the deer when they are the fattest. I mean, deer fat isn't great, but if you're surviving, you can eat it. That's one of the things I like to try and figure out is everybody. I mean, we talk in the same circles. All the guys we talk to, they say as soon as a survival situation or something happens, I'm gonna go out in the forest and I'm gonna shoot a deer for my family, and I'll be keep on shooting deer.
nope, don't
There's a
work that
few
way.
things wrong with that. For one thing, that's everybody else's plan. So you're gonna run out of deer within a week or two. There's not gonna be any left. They're just all gonna be gone, except for back up in the mountains, places that people don't go. They'll all be gone. And then the reason that we have hunting season when we have hunting season, a lot of people don't really realize what's going on there. If if you shoot that deer at the very beginning of summer or as spring comes in, you're just killing a skinny animal that spent the entire winter months trying to get by and survive. There's no fat on that creature at all. There's nothing in it at all. You can feed it to your kids, your family every day. You will die. You'll be throwing up the protein because you'll protein poison yourself. So I see a lot of folks, if that were ever to happen, going out there and killing all the skinny deer in the spring, not being able to eat it, not being able to use it, and then when the winter comes back and around and those deer should have fat on them, they killed all the deer. So you've got to be able to button up your survival for year round, not just a moment in time, and understand how the nature fluctuates and how to make the best of it, where to get the fat when the rest of the animals out there don't really have the fat, and when to make the use when the fat's on them. So it's a huge balance.
I think when we're talking about a survival situation, you know, to dream about going after something like a deer is a wonderful thing, but I think your best option is always small game. Your
Mm.
rabbits, your squirrels. Um, God forgive me for saying it, but possum, armadillo, even.
They taste
Uh,
just fine, man.
well, I'll tell you what. I'll come to Texas and you can show me.
No problem.
Uh,
No problem, man.
uh, uh,
Meat's meat.
you know, you said something to me one time. I'd rather have fish if I could get it. There you go. Uh, um,
Yeah. It's true.
uh,
I'm being
I,
picky at
yeah,
that point, though. But
exactly,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. But
absolutely.
we was talking about the tarps earlier, and
Mhm.
what size. But I think another big question that people need to be thinking about is what type of tarp. Do you want a
Right.
plastic? Do you want canvas? For me personally, I've always tended to like the canvas tarps a whole lot better because it just seems like they're just more you can do with them and they won't melt like
Yeah.
plastic.
It's a toss up. I'm horseback. I'm a rider, and I'll always be a rider. And so the mentality I bring into that is all canvas, because my horse takes care of my weight. And so if you see me out on the trail with my horses, I definitely have a lot of canvas. I run canvas. When I'm on foot and I have to go backpacking style, that canvas is the heaviest thing you have ever hauled around.
It
And
is heavy.
oh my goodness, it is heavy. And so it I'm gonna have to say it depends. It really does depend. Um, it really does depend. I love the canvas though. I have several rolls in the leather shop. I use it for everything. It's super durable. But I've hauled it around a few times on a backpack, and it really made me regret it. I'd much rather have that weight in rice or something else. So
Mm.
yeah, and
And
the needs change as well because it's what is it, mid-November right now, and I don't even have a jacket on, This is the only shirt I have on right now, and I'm out here in a field. So, and I'm not cold. So different needs for different folks and different things they're looking for. I have a lot of folks who look at my fires and say, "Well, how do you build your fire so that you stay warm?" It's still 70 degrees out here. It's still going to be 90 degrees in December. My needs are not the needs of everybody else's, so I don't have to build to certain specs. A lot of times it depends on where you're at, as far as what you need to have and what you need to do. You guys that are up there in the colder weather, I'd be probably pretty lost with a lot of that stuff. I mean, I can do things, but all the tricks that y'all have that y'all grew up with, I'd be at a disadvantage for sure. So bug
I,
out bag's going to be variable.
well, yeah, exactly. What's the average cold temperature there in the winter?
Um, it froze. It got below 32 degrees one time last year, and it didn't the year before that. Uh, for an hour or two. It snows like once every 7 or 8 years. It'll snow about a half inch maybe, but things have been changed in the last decade or two. When I was a kid, it was icy out here quite a bit, but it hasn't frozen or gotten icy in over a decade now. So we'll still go swimming in the river in December, and we're
Wow,
still in t-shirts all through November. So
it's about like that here. Like
is
I
it
said, I'm in South Carolina, so
right on?
right now it's probably 75, 76 degrees outside.
That's really
It,
decent. Yeah,
yeah, it's not cold at all.
yeah,
In fact, I've got the air conditioner on and a fan going right now. So,
yeah.
uh,
ACs are still running hard.
yep. So, unfortunately, I'm not sitting outside next to a fire like some people.
I wish
But
I wish I had the fire going, but I haven't had any rain lately. I need a little bit of
uh,
rain. So I thought about throwing a fire up, but it was blowing wind all day, and
yeah,
I
that's
didn't light
dangerous.
anything up.
That's
So
that's a dangerous situation.
I'll have a spot where I can go ahead and do things like this more often once I get a booster for uh for the camera and stuff. Right now, I've got to go to the top of my hills to be able to have a conversation with LTE and have the signal strength. So once I get a signal booster purchased and set up, I ought to be able to have a nice fire and a nice beautiful camp area back there with that sandstone back of me, and be a lot more comfortable when out of the weather.
And,
So
that's something else, man. I love some of the backdrops you get in your videos.
awesome,
Ex-
awesome.
ex- that little canyon area, is that on your property?
Is it the stuff with the sandstone or
Yeah, where with the little lake or pond or whatever that thing is.
with the notch?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's actually back in the Davis Mountains. That's part of the Boy Scout camp. That part of their larger ranch
Oh,
that
okay.
I have access to, and it's only about 4 miles up trail, 3 or 4 miles up trail, so it's fairly accessible. But it's a gorgeous place. Seeing that little
Uh,
slot canyon area, it's something I've been going to ever since I was a little kid. But
I've watched you fish that spot several times in your videos, and I'm like, man, that place is absolutely gorgeous.
it's
And
nuts
it looks like there's one spot there that's 6, 7 feet deep at
at
that just
least.
one edge.
Mm-hmm.
And most people wouldn't notice that, but you know they used to fish creeks like that my whole life, so you can tell by the way the water moves around certain areas how deep the water is. It just takes time to figure it out.
Yeah, had a lot of
But
crazy scouts jump off of high cliffs into that thing.
yeah,
So, uh,
um, but yeah, it looks like it's fairly deep, and I'd say the fishing there is probably pretty good too.
it's really good some years. Lately, last year or so, it hadn't been because it's been going dry, which is almost unheard of. But it'll pop back together as soon as the water and rain comes back in. You got good years and bad years. that place, you add a little bit of water and life finds a way everywhere.
Yep.
So we've got some plans out here to go ahead and start putting some stock tanks in. I want to be able to retain a lot more water and have a lot more options and show a lot of things that I can't show per se with what you would call public water, because the creek is mine, but I can't do a primitive trap on a creek. I'm not allowed to, or the river. I'm not allowed to, even though it's non-navigable. It's still declared by the state of Texas as their water. And so once I put some big stock tanks in, you'll be able to see some of the more primitive styles of fishing and trap and net building, and then how that actually works. Because, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of videos out there where they build the dumbest looking thing, and then it does not work, or it works because they put their pet goldfish in it, and it's given a lot of people some crazy ideas about what it takes to get an animal in a certain place, or be able to have access to it as a resource.
I have tried fish trapping with
Mm.
various degrees of success. So it's trial and error. I have also tried, again, snaring. I've tried
Mm.
that with, and honestly, and this is a fact, I have never caught nothing in a snare. Nothing. I don't know what the heck I'm doing wrong, but I'm doing something wrong. But never caught anything in a snare. I have caught some crawdads and stuff in fish traps,
Mm.
but as far as snaring, no luck ever. I go
I
back out and check them, and I'm like, well, that didn't work.
haven't done any large snaring, um, but I can get stuff out of burrows. One of my favorite things is not so much using paths, because out here the paths are used by every size thing. There's not just a small burrow path and a large path for animals. They all use the same paths, and that can mess up the snares. But if I can track a burrow back, or a set of burrows back, I can snare the heck out of those entrances, and I can have pretty good success with it. So, and on my own terms as well.
Yeah,
I want
exactly.
to be able to get them on my own terms, and not have a snare string that's a mile and a half long. I can just be off somewhere else taking a nap, waiting to hear a scuffle and
Yep.
come running. So it's a tricky thing, because you have to line up a lot of what's going on. You got to figure it out, and then depending on what kind of snare you've got to find the resources and the right terrain to change it up, or not change it, hopefully, to make it as useful as possible. So it all
So,
seems simple.
folks, yeah, it ain't.
No.
Folks, if anybody's got any questions you'd like to ask myself or Bob, please feel free. We've got a few minutes left here. So,
Absolutely.
Bob, is there anything you got coming up that we should be excited to see or looking out for?
not not so much that I can disclose, because I've had to sign NDAs. So
Oh,
so that should be enough to say that good things are happening,
yep.
and good things will be out here in the next 6 or 7 months. And
Okay.
it's pretty exciting for this little place back here to have some stuff going on. But you're definitely going to see a lot more content coming out, because I want to try and bankroll as much of what's happening as possible and give people some good stuff to watch. But we're back on it, and I've got enough eyesight that I feel pretty confident about being out there on camera a lot more. So it's become so much easier with just a little bit of eyesight coming back than what it was a year ago. So
Um,
other than that, I've got a lot of projects. I got a lot of videos coming out. A lot of friends coming over to help me film them and knock it out. So
Anybody we know?
I tried to get Woody Beersman down here, but he's worried about the COVID stuff, because Canada's the Canada stuff is really happening right now. They
Yeah.
really lock you down. So he's wanting to come down real bad in the spring. We'll see what the vaccine does and see what Canada does as far as release some of the lockdown. because he was worried about having to come back and have 14 days locked in his house after coming back here and chilling out.
Mm.
Zach Fowler might come down here, might not. I might have him back in the mountains. He does a lot of woodwork and stuff like that. I've kind of challenged him to come out and do some stuff with the rock because I've got a lot of rock back there in the West Texas mountains. So that's an ongoing project. And then I've got some stuff that I've been planting and working on that's going to be a 2-year project with Wooded Beersman and Zach Fowler. And I can't talk about that just yet because it's going to be one of those huge deals that everybody's going to be looking forward to. And it's going to take us several months to get and complete it. So we've got some big plans fired up. We've got a lot of cool things coming in. It's I mean, we're still regrouping from the coronavirus stuff. So all of our plans went to trash with all that. So we're still catching up. But the plan is just to start showing people more and more, and be out there, and be part of it. So and kind of get content that's not so dumb as what the rest of the internet's sharing right now.
You know what? That's the thing. There are so many different, and some of them are really good. Some of the channels out there are really good, and they're putting out good information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I enjoy Blackie Thomas. I don't know if you know who that is. He's another YouTuber out there. Dave Canterbury, of course, has got his own YouTube channel. He put some stuff out that I really enjoy. And then there's you. And the thing about it is you all three are unique and different, living in different situations.
Yeah.
And I see the way you do things, and then I'll compare it to the way they do things, and then look at my situation. Well, how could I blend all of that to work for me here? And I think that's what people need to start realizing is you're going to have 50 guys out there, and 5 of them might know what you're talking about. So
yeah.
And
I'll put myself up against anybody, but I love to learn. I absolutely love to learn.
I'm by no means an expert at survival or anything like that. I'd give myself a 2 in 10 chance, but I'd make the best of that too.
You come down to Texas and get tired of clams. It's an option. It's there's some awesome guys out there, and I love when they show me kind of their area, and changes my perspective when they do something that's I see as brilliant, and I would have never thought about that if I were in the situation. I love those moments where it's just bam,
Eureka.
Cool. But I also see the survival life. I don't know what it is. Looks like a bunch of tribesmen, kids from Asia or something, and they're trapping their farm animals, and they're doing all kinds of horrible things and setting up the shots where you can definitely tell everything's been just messed around with and made to do certain things. It's all scamming, and there's an entertainment to it, but a good majority of the people, when I look at the comment section, are going, "Oh, that's brilliant, that's amazing, you can do that, you can do that."
Yeah.
And it's one of the worst things as an educator to see people shown some really stupid and bad information, and then they're putting it in a slot in their head saying, "This will save my life." And that's where the danger comes in. Go screw around, go tell them that you like a certain kind of soda or something, or give them a recipe. But when you start giving bad survival advice, I have issues with that, for sure. Real bad. So,
it's that's why we need more guys like you out there give the good information. Who else would you recommend if for people who are serious about survival and want to learn more? Who would you recommend we listen to?
Your names that you've just listed off are pretty amazing. as far as just a channel, I enjoy Fisherman's Life, and not so much that he shows too much survival and he does a little bit on the trail,
Mm-hmm.
but he spins a cool story and he goes out there and he brings back what he intends to bring back and he makes the meal for the day, and that ain't bad at all. Who else do I watch? Any idea, Sean? No? Sean Woods? Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, Sean Woods got as a unique take at it. Um, it it really kind of varies. It depends on what I'm looking for. Like you said, different people have different fortes, and in various situations, I get to see tricks of the trade. But I see a trend whenever I go out in the desert and you see the dunes around me or the barren landscapes, and people really really watch the heck out of that because most of the bushcrafters out there are just surrounded by timber, the same looking timber, the same forests. And so the tricks only go so far because that's the majority of the bushcraft community. They're in the same kind of forest. It all kind of looks similar. And I get I get to that same point where it's not anything new for me hardly. Or I see somebody like Survival Lily. Ugh. And I see what's captured people's attention, and that gives me some ideas, but at the same time, bad information or folks that don't quite know what they're doing, but they're gonna get out and do a camera and show a technique that they haven't spent 5 minutes practicing, and it's rough. It's rough on me.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah. How many videos have you seen out there? Somebody trying to, you know, make a fire using two sticks. You shake
yeah,
your head and go, no, no, no,
well,
no.
two sticks or a fire starter or a lighter. I've seen I've seen a lot of people practice or try and teach people things that they haven't tried themselves or they don't know what they're doing, and it's strange to me. It really is. So
I have actually tried. Bless you.
sorry
I
about
have
that.
actually. You're fine. I have actually tried the bow drill thing, and I have got some embers, but it's not something that I have done in 4 minutes. It
Oh,
takes
it's
a
not fun.
lot. It takes time to get that thing to where you need it to be.
Oh, it's
Um,
not fun at all.
no,
Makes you want to be even more prepared.
yeah, exactly. It's actual work.
Mm-hmm.
You see these videos and these people are doing this, and you're thinking, well, it's taking them 5 minutes to have a nice fire going. No, I was out
No,
there for 20 minutes before I even seen smoke.
and
So,
the ones that do know what's going on, they've done that thousands of times.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you can definitely get some good stuff out of that here and there. Um, yeah,
Just,
it's ugh, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, I had a park ranger, a Texas park ranger, come out and do some kind of he's doing a demonstration for some kids and stuff, and he brought out his bow drill, and his whole thing was bow drills, and he spent 15 minutes fiddling around, not being able to get anything going, barely being able to make it spin, and this was his own kit, and I was like, oh, buddy. Uh,
uh,
I think this needs to be wrapped up with keep a Bic lighter on you and a fire starter. Like this should be something. Even the guys that are teaching this don't always get it right.
you'd be surprised how handy a backpack of matches is.
Oh yeah, oh
You
yeah. And
know?
my ferro rod will get just about anything going,
Yep,
and real quick.
exactly, man. Hey, you know what, Bob? I appreciate you being here tonight. We're about to call it done.
Sounds
We've
good.
been going a little over an hour now. I've had a blast, man.
I've had fun.
Uh, I hope to have you back on in the future.
Yeah.
Uh, I've got some shows coming up in the next few weeks. Midnight Range is going to be back with us. He's going to be talking about some Thanksgiving stuff. So
Oh,
Can't
right
wait
on.
for that one. Yeah. Well,
Let
you're
me
welcome
let
to.
me get a signal booster out here so I can cook an armadillo on your live stream one of these times and have the fire right next to me.
You
So
know what? That's a date. That's a date. We'll
let's
do
do it
that.
for sure. For
You,
sure.
you send me a message. You let me know when and you're ready to do it, and I will go live and we will, you know, watch you cook an armadillo.
No problem. Huck might even eat it this time. Who knows?
And I'll go you one better than that.
Hmm.
You get some armadillo jerky and send it to me, and I'll eat some of it too.
I'll do that. I'll hold you to that. I, Shauna's
and I'll
Shauna's
and I'll do you a favor, and I'll do it live.
yeah, Shauna's one heck of a jerky maker. So you pick your flavor and that jerky's made, man. You have to see
Yeah,
some Dillo jerky.
yeah,
So well,
I'm,
it's been fantastic coming out. I'm glad you had me on your channel, and I appreciate it greatly. Uh,
man. I appreciate you, guys. Remember his name's Bob Hansler. You can hit him up on his YouTube channel. He's puts out a ton of great information. Stop by and say hello in his chats, his comments. Um, I appreciate each and every one of y'all for being out here. You got anything to plug, anything to say, anything you need to get off your chest?
we're good, man. I'm doing well. Everything's good. Weather's fine. All all's come together. So, oh,
Hey,
and I'll
man.
have give me about 6 7 months, and I'll be able to disclose some of the stuff that's been happening and be able to roll that out and tell y'all about that because that'll be a live stream on its own.
Well, I cannot wait. Anyway, I love each and every one of you guys out there. You stay safe, keep your heads down. Don't worry too much about what's going on in the world right now. It'll all come out in the wash. We love you. Bye.
Till next time.